Welcome to JGTCR, I'm Cope, and today we are tuning the Alpine A110 with the engine swap. Let's get into it. In factory trim with just the engine swap, this A110 is a horrid drive, and as can be seen on screen, it is a hot sloppy mess. A somewhat common trait of engine swaps is that the suspension becomes spongy, leaving the vehicle wobbling all over the place as we try and make our way around the track. This leaves us very little control and gives us a very full-on floating sensation as we attack the turns. The handling itself is an oversteer and understeer nightmare. It switches back and forth between the two as it sees fit, and it's up to us as the driver to keep it all together. The power and power delivery is extremely aggressive, so it's best to keep to the high gears and wait for it to come on boost. This may seem counterintuitive as we are racing, but it only takes the slightest of mistakes to end up facing the wrong way, so it's best to err on the side of caution. When slides do occur, they are terrible. The back of the car tries to drag the front straight off the track, and if it grips up while sliding, it has a very nasty bite to it. So if there's anything to take away from the conversation, it's don't slide. The brakes do work, but they are spongy and wobbly. Let's jump ahead and collect our time. Eight minutes, 25.1 seconds. And now the race tune. With no front aero, we had to rely on ballast to keep the nose down. The suspension also remained extremely moody as we tuned. It seems that no matter how aggressive we were with tuning, it always ended up being spongy. In the end, this is what we settled on. It works, and it is fast, but it's hard to say that it's a good drive. Let's see it in action. It's hard to be happy with how this A110 drives. No matter what we do, it's terrible, but at least it's fast, right? The suspension is still wobbly and janky. It seems like that trait is just baked into this vehicle. It jumps and gyrates all over the track. And heaven forbid that the road surface is uneven because it will throw us in any random direction. But if we truly want to roll the dice, run over some rumble strips, cause it's gambling at its best. When in optimal conditions, the handling is acceptable, as long as we keep it on the black stuff. The power delivery is reasonable, but it does have its quirks and issues. First and foremost, wheel spin is okay, but slides are most certainly not. That's because this A110 has some nasty snappy tom action. When we are cornering hard, full throttle can cause understeer, but if we ease off the throttle just 5%, then it settles into the turn and it's all good. When it comes to putting the power down, a slow throttle modulation is key for maintaining control and fast times. The brakes on this Alpine are not great. It gets wobbly and can start sliding on a whim. Again, it comes down to modulation of the brake as we get on and off to make sure we maintain stability. Let's jump ahead and collect our time. Six minutes, 36.8 seconds. On to the drift tune. Our drift tune for the A110 with the engine swap came together much better than our race tune, and all we did was change the tyres to comfort hards and reduce the natural frequency of the rear to 2.00. Let's go drifting. It really did not take much to get the Alpine A110 with the engine swap to drift well, and it has taken to drifting like a fish to water. The drift itself has a nice sway to it. This Alpine likes smooth and slow transitions, but it can handle a more aggressive approach. The handling is good for the most part, but it can feel a bit twitchy at times. This is something we can get used to over time, but it does feel like the remnants of what was baked into our race tune. Once we get settled into the flow of how the Alpine A110 likes to be drifted, it's all clear sailing from there. The power is pretty solid. There is plenty available when on boost, however, off boost it can be troublesome mid-drift. The power delivery is great, especially when it's on boost and full song. When it falls out of the power band and off boost, it just doesn't have the torque to lift itself up by the bootstraps. But a good kick in the guts by downshifting or a jib of the handbrake brings it back to life. And that's all we have for you today, so until next time, keep racing!